I am thrilled to introduce our community to Emmanuel Anthony. His personal mission is to inspire, empower, educate humanity globally, and awaken our inner genius and live fulfilling lives daily as true masters of our own destiny. Welcome, Emmanuel. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for joining us. We were laughing before we pressed the record button because you are in Australia. So I'm still in Monday and you are waking up to Tuesday morning right now.
Yes, I was just telling you, I'm in the future for anybody watching from America. The future looks exactly the same as the past, and I can't give you lottery numbers, but if I could, I promise we'd share the winnings.
Man, we could use more of you. You're going to have to take all the time you need to tell us about your past, how you got where you are today, and then also really let our listeners understand what you are doing. Like dive deep there because you're a little unique and new to our community.
Okay, beautiful. So my name is Emmanuel Anthony. As mentioned before, I'm a human behavioral speaker, researcher, writer, teacher, author, and consultant. I never really thought I'd be doing the things I'm doing right now when I was in grade 3 or 4, because when I came to Australia at 4 years old, I didn't speak English. My family's originally from a very small island called Rodriguez Islands, right next to Mauritius. They're basically the same. And I spoke fluent French, and I wanted to make friends. So if we look at it in terms of, the language I speak today, it was social mastery. I wanted to go out and I wanted to socialize and become a master in that area. But I didn't know how to speak English. And something that we've found for our sciences is that if one of your senses isn't working as well, the other senses, in order to maximize human potential, they actually start to heighten. So people that can't hear, they may be able to see a little bit clearer. Or people can't see well, their hearing really comes fine-tuned. And for me, I started copying at the time, but now I know it was replicating and modeling the popular kids at school, because I was trying to figure out how it was to speak English. But I felt that if I didn't understand the words, maybe I could understand something about their tone and what they were doing with their hands. And I would replicate that and then use the kids as my test subjects, really. And I'd see if it worked or if it didn't work. Now, while I was trying to transition through that, because we've got 7 areas of mastery within our lives: physical, financial, mental, spiritual, social, vocation, and family, I also found that I was physically weak. And that led me down the path of wanting to play sport, because I found that I didn't have to speak very well. I could just be a really good sports person, and I would make friends instantly. So that was how I first gravitated to sport in grade 3. I picked up a basketball, and basketball wasn't as popular in Australia as what it is in America. But as soon as I picked up a basketball, it was the era of Michael Jordan. I couldn't put this thing down. And I went from everyone else having played from, prep or something like that and having a skill level to having to catch up. And as I was catching up, I was physically getting picked on at school. And I found that was a way to make friends. So this was a perfect mergence. Now, all of a sudden, as I learned how to really master how to speak English as I was growing up, I also found that I could make a lot of friends by being really good at basketball. So I practiced 5 hours a day. Fast forward to grade 5, I remember I almost won an award at the end of the year for, the most valuable player for my team, but I missed out on 2 games. And when I missed out on those 2 games, I was sitting down because it was all the grade 5s and 6s, the grade 5 and 6 comp. And when they said the most valuable player for, and they went to say my team, I actually pushed my hands on the floor and my butt left the ground. And this is a moment I share with Michael Jordan in a weird way, but obviously he did way greater things. When they called Matthew Cash, which was the second best player on our team, and just between him and I, so I'd score 30 to 35, he'd score 10. So my coach came up to me when he noticed I was a little bit sad after that and said, look, every game we put in a tally and 2 people get that tally and you missed out on 2 games. So come grade 6, I said, I'm going to not only show that I'm better than Matthew Cash, but I'm going to show them that they made a mistake. And I went every single day. I even remember one game where I didn't go to school for a week. I had a migraine. My mum said, she said, you're not going to basketball. I said, I will literally neck myself if you do not let me go and play basketball. And I convinced her to let me go. And the deal was I had to walk to the doctors afterwards to make sure I was okay. Still scored 30 points. At the end of that season, I remember I was sitting down. Same thing happened again. Now they go through all of the teams, but they skip ours. And then they said, and the MVP for the whole season is, and I'm sitting there thinking, these idiots are completely skipping me. I'm not even listening to this. I'm not listening. This is unprofessional. I've worked 5 hours a day. I've practiced every drill. We won the grand final, and I feel that I have played a part in that. I'm not even listening to this. And they said, Emmanuel Anthony. And everybody cheered, and I looked around, and I did it holding my coffee here that a fiance got me, or a chai latte, and I just went, yeah, cool. And I didn't realize I was cheering for myself.
Oh, my goodness.
When I won that award, that was a breakthrough moment for me, because even though I've spoken on stages all around the world, it's been 11 years of consulting. I've worked with thousands of clients. That particular moment represented something. The people that I was playing against, I remember there was one guy that was like 1.5 meters taller than me. He was a year 8 in grade 6. He was just this massive dude. And we all looked at him, and I said, he's the MVP every season. And by working 5 hours a day, dedicating myself to a vision, taking fuel from anybody that said that I couldn't do it, and then just when I felt like quitting at nighttime, I would have their voice at the back of my head, and I'd practice for an extra hour when I couldn't even move. And I'd get to school, I'd be the first one there because I would live straight across. I'd practice for 2 hours a day. And that showed me something that I never even thought was possible. I can't even talk about it without having tears of gratitude. That if I dedicate my mind to something, and I start off at the fundamentals, and I master all the fundamentals going through, and the voice and the vision on the inside is louder and much more profound than anything on the outside, I can do anything. And it's limitless to what I can achieve. So fast forward to year 11 and 12, I ended up quitting basketball. I realized there was a lot of politics within that, and some of my movement up was being restricted in the areas I was playing by the politics more than anything else. I was making B-side squads, but outscoring and outplaying when we played A's versus B's, the guys in the A team. And my coach just came up to me and said, their families put a lot of money into this. It's just the way that it goes. This is what you're going to fight. So moving away from that, I ended up feeling a little bit lost, not having any sport in my life for a couple of years. And so 17 to probably 18 and a half, I experimented with all the mind-altering substances you possibly could. Because when you go from absolute dedication to not needing any dedication at all, I can see why a lot of extreme sports stars just kind of, write themselves off, because you don't have to get up first thing in the morning. You don't have to do any of that. But that kind of lasted 17 to 26 ultimately, but it kind of calmed down once I picked up bodybuilding. And bodybuilding, what I loved about it at the time was I didn't have to rely on anybody. It was just me. I didn't have to rely on a team. I practiced 5 hours a day. Most of the other guys would be lucky if they practiced 5 hours in a week. So for me now, I could fully focus on that. And I pretty much just did body sculpturing and photo shoots and things like that during that period. I still train today, but I don't go, 100 kilos off season, 80 kilos, 6% body fat or something on season. I've got a gym at my house and everything, but they taught me the fundamentals that I utilize for business and for life every single day. I work with clients. I help them create changes. We guarantee results around anxiety, depression, and all this, all mindset stuff. But to me, I'm still just playing a sport. It's a competitive business. And I go in every single day. I'm trying to master the little things, show my clients how to do that, and show them how to compete against themselves. That's probably the fastest, shortest way I can explain what I do.
No, thank you. That's really helpful. And I don't know why I feel like I need to ask this, because knowing how much dedication you have put in and understanding of practice and persistence, do you ever get frustrated when working with somebody that you don't feel like they're giving the type of time and energy that you would be willing to give?
I do. And by the way, I'm just going to let everybody know, if they see me look down here, you're down there, but my camera's up here. So I'm looking at both of you.
Okay.
Maybe thinking, why does he keep looking away? I do to a degree, but it's because I have a high standard for my clients. In sport, that was more of a frustration I had. Michael Jordan's latest Netflix thing came out this year, and it was The Last Dance. I got that. I used to ride a lot of the players that I played with, because I saw that they had greater potential and they wanted to go to the finals, but they didn't want to do the work that it would take to go to the finals. And I was training 5 hours a day, playing for 3 or 4 different teams, so I knew what it took in that. But when it comes to my clients, there's definitely this desire to push them as much as I can, because maximum growth occurs at the border of support and challenge. So if you over support, they're just like a child, they become juvenile dependent. If you over challenge, they feel they become precociously independent, but they want to break away from you. And I always want that self and other worth to be quite equal. They increase their self-worth by doing things themselves, but they increase the other worth by me being the guider and showing them the next steps in that and speeding up how fast they can get those results. So in that reference, 100%. I want to push my clients, and there is an aspect of me when they're not pushing themselves as hard as I feel that they could. And I really think, we're not gonna get as far as I want. We're definitely going to be able to get results, but it's not going to be your maximum potential. You're not going to discover the magnificence of who you are as a person to the greatest degree. And then when I work with clients that do the opposite of that, so I may send them, we do a consultation generally once a week for about an hour and a half, and I send them homework to do in between. I've got clients that will get that homework back to me in 24 hours, and they'll just keep doing that. And it's like playing tennis against a brick wall. I tell them, I'm the brick wall. That's just going to keep coming back at you. You can hit it as hard as you want. It's just going to come back just as hard in that. So I make sure that they realize this is a team effort. We're working together. I can't push them to do something they don't want to do. And if they don't have me working as hard, they're just doing it themselves. But when we're working together, I can really guide them to amazing places. So yes, that's where my heart gets to just glow. Like when I wake up and have clients and I look at my list, and I know it's like the top roster of people that they're doing the work, they're doing it to their maximum potential, they're asking questions daily. I can't wait to consult with them. They can't wait to consult with me. And it's the reason they make my 12-hour days amazing. I've worked 12 hours for the last 10, 11 years, probably even longer than that, because I've generally done what I love. So I hate working any less than that. But with them, I feel like I could work 14 hours when I have students and clients like that.
Right. And then it's almost this shift of now you have to protect time because it is fun and you could keep going. And I think you mentioned that you have a fiance, so there's family in the future. And isn't that a funny balance when we love our job so much that we have to be careful too?
Yeah, so I've got what's called a wealth maximizer calendar that I utilize. My life very much is about tracking. So I track my water. This thing, literally every time I take a sip, lets my Bluetooth know. I track my sleep. I've got a Whoop going on because now I'm an avid golfer, as well as enjoying some gym time. So I play that a couple of times a week. I kind of track all 7 areas of my life, and they've got spots. And those spots are in blocks of anywhere between 1 to 3 or 4 hours. But I hit all 7 areas every single day. And then on the weekend, that's protected as well. So I treat my business like the stock market. When it's done, it's done. That's it. I shut up shop. I can do everything that I can between 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. Sydney time, Australia. I may alter that slightly if I've got clients that are a little above or before in a different time zone, but I also alter my day as well. So I may start a little bit later or finish a little bit earlier the next day, just to make sure I have that balance. And as long as I maintain that balance, to me, one of the things that I'm telling my clients, because I do consult with a lot of personal trainers and a lot of consultants themselves in different fields. And one of the things that I tell them is, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Every now and then during the year, you may have a couple of sprints where you've got a couple of big clients and you're just going to push it a little bit and burn both ends of the candle. But that should be every now and then. That should not be the regular thing, because if you can make this a sustainable system where you actually have sustainability throughout the year, and that's my ultimate aim, just a comfortable, sustainable system. I'll ease off my goals by 10%, but I won't burn out. Where the way a lot of other people will. And I'll have growth in all 7 areas. My relationships intact, my friendships are intact. I'm playing sports and getting away from work, so I appreciate when I come back. Having that balance means I can see myself doing this until I'm in my 70s easily.
Yeah. I love that. Yes. And you're role modeling for those following you, because you hear a lot of entrepreneurs really burn out or get sick down the road because that it was a sprint and for them in the beginning. So I love that you speak it, you role model it, you live it, and it's good stuff. Tell us the typical client. Like you said, you do have personal trainers that come to you. Do you have a typical client, or are you really all over the map with who you are coaching?
All over the map. Because the original fundamentals, and we were talking about this off camera before, when I won that award, what really hit me was the fact that if I don't master my inner world, there's nothing I can achieve on the outer world, because my self-doubt will kick in, because you got to give yourself permission Like when I went and first picked up a basketball and everyone else is 3 years ahead of me, I had to give myself permission to continue picking up a basketball. Well, I remember a guy called Sean Myers, good friend today, but he used to say, you look like crap, you play like crap, you're never going to be good. And I used that as fuel for my fire, but I had to believe that there was something on the other side. And then as I was going through that, you hit roadblocks. You've got to be able to overcome those roadblocks because they're more mental than they're actually physical. We add a little 10%, or as we call it in Australia, GST. We add a little GST to that. And then once you start elevating higher and higher and have successes, now you've got to be able to master the social realm because you have popularity that comes with being great at a sport. Now you've also got to be humble. And that becomes an interesting challenge when everybody's boosting you up. So I realized really quickly that it was the mental realm. And that's why I wanted to specialize in this area. So my guests are everything. They're the CEOs of companies, and they're also the people that clean the companies for the CEOs. I work with sports people. I work with a lot of personal trainers. I find that because a lot of them are entrepreneurs within Australia as well. So as entrepreneurs, they want to grow, they want to evolve, they want to make sure that they have the resilience within business and many other areas. So yeah, it's a range of different areas, and we start with the fundamentals of mindset, and then we transition from that into greater levels of mastery. And the way I like to put it is, once you have the mindset complete, then you learn the tools to be able to overcome any challenge that comes your way. Then once you've got those tools, we apply that and we set goals for all 7 areas of life for the next 50 years of your life. Because if you set a goal that's too short in time and space, then the minute you get your goal, you have boredom and procrastination, and you start drinking and doing all kinds of weird things because you're just not inspired. But when you set a long enough vision that inspires you, that means inner driven, not motivation, something that's short and from the outside, you're doing it for somebody else. But it's inner driven. It's really from inside of you, and it's something that you're most dedicated to setting your life towards. The minute you have that and you're setting goals towards the next 50 years, you'll be prioritized, organized, disciplined, reliable, and focused. You'll manage your time efficiently because every single day you wake up, you're not just going to work, you're on a mission. You're on a mission to do something.
Right. Right. And I love that you're telling everybody it's over time. It is, our societies all want fast paced and we want that glamorous woohoo now. But the reality is that we have to understand it and learn as we go so that we are able to steward all that success down the road. Because if you just already got there and you didn't learn all that along the way, you're missing the maintenance component, right, of that success.
Only a small percentage of people have instant success within a field, and that's usually over glorified. But the truth of the matter is, whatever journey you take, that has benefits and drawbacks. I remember I had a graphic design career, so I completed graphic design at school. That's what I thought that I wanted to do with my life, until I had a breakthrough with an American gentleman from Texas called Dr. John Demartini. It's the world's leading human behavioral specialist. He's also the Guinness Book record holder for most books read by a human being. And I had a breakthrough with him at 26 years old that transformed and changed my life. I utilized a method which I specialize in today called the Demartini method, and let go of 20 years worth of baggage towards my father in 3 hours. I haven't been able to go back since I was 26. I'm 37 today, and find any of the emotions around that. So where prior to that, my emotions were running me, I now run my emotions in that context. But the minute that occurred, that completely transformed my life. And you said something earlier, which was that I'm applying the things that I've learned. The reality is I did this for me. I wanted to organize my own life. And the minute that I started organizing my own life, then from there, I realized, hold on a second, this is what I want to share with other people. Mm-hmm. I know that if they can master those aspects, then they can create an inspiring, empowering, and fulfilling life. And really, it doesn't matter what field you're in. That's what we all want to do ultimately.
Right. You are holding these magic keys to success. And once you start to see that, it feels like, I got to share this. This is amazing. Yeah. I think you've already been talking around this to some extent, but I love that in the past you've mentioned leveling up in life, kind of like viewing life as a video game almost. Can you talk on that?
Yeah. And I would use those words too. I was an avid Mario Brothers player when I was younger. Yeah. my dad used to say, when you finish reading this book, because I didn't enjoy reading until I was probably about in my 20s, to be honest with you. But my dad would say, when you read this book and then tell me what it's about, I'll let you play Nintendo. So I would read I'd read kind of the chapter summary of what was going on. Then I'd read the back, I think it's called the blurb or whatever it was. And then once I'd done that, I'd read the first couple of pages of each start of each chapter. And then I'd go to him in record time and say, quiz me about this book. And he'd quiz me. So I got that done in, 20 minutes instead of taking a couple of hours. And he'd be quiet. He'd read the blurb at the back and go, okay, this sounds like he knows what he's talking about. And then I just play a couple of hours of Mario Brothers. But
cheater.
Oh goodness, I could tell you so many things I got away with. In high school, I was amazing at replicating. I was a graphic designer, so I could take anybody's writing and copy it. So a lot of people, we had to hand in our diaries every Friday. And at the school, if you got in trouble, they would give you detentions and things, and the teachers and your parents had to sign them. So I would have a stack of diaries, and I would make people give me their lunch in exchange for that, just like you would in a jail, I guess, commissary. And that's how I got through that. So I was definitely a cheeky kid.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. I lost the question. What was the question?
Back to Mario Brothers, leveling up in life.
There we go. So I've always wanted to have fun with my life. I had an amazing and very complex at the start of life. It's not complex to me now after I've broken through my father, but I was a black sheep of the family. Everything that my father represented, I've represented the opposite. He's extremely religious and Catholic. I'm the first atheist in the family. He wanted me to be a pilot. I was scared of heights up until I was 26. He wanted me to become a priest. Once again, I was the first atheist. I wanted to question everything, and I couldn't find the answers within that, and the religion wouldn't answer it. So growing up, I had to stand on my own 2 feet, and I felt that I had to really learn how to communicate to people or ask the questions to understand how it is that this universe runs. Because in the work that I do, it's about physiology, psychology, biology, astronomy. But you've got to know how everything intertwines and interconnects, because it works through the language of mathematics, and everything has an algorithm. Well, in doing that, that can be quite complex, trying to figure out how the universe and the world runs. So as I started researching, for me, it was really about making it a sport or making it a video game. And I communicate within my clients' values, meaning if I have somebody that's really into fitness, I may communicate to them. I've got a very specific client I'm thinking about in my mind, and I work with him on Fridays. And whenever I communicate with him, I explain things in terms of what he does. So he's a personal trainer, he'll work with people, and I'll say, look, this phase that we're at right now, this is the initial consultation where you and I are going to come in. And if I was working with you as a personal trainer, we're just going through and I'm teaching you how to do a bicep curl, shoulders back. Make sure you're squeezing the bicep as you come up, lower it, count to 3, so you get you're getting all of the fibers. And I explain it within their language, and I make it like a video game where they're going from one level to another, or I make it like what we call it is personal training for the mind, where there are different levels that you're accessing, but we make it fun. We laugh during the process, because everything that we do is about authenticity. So I want that process to feel like a video game in terms of, yes, there's a challenge. When I played Mario Brothers, and I think it was the dragon or whatever it was, and it spit fires and you had to run across that bridge, my heart was racing. I still have that feeling now. Or Call of Duty, there was this one thing my brother and I used to play in the dark, and it would just be him and I on this massive screen. And I swear my heart would be, if I was wearing my Whoop back then, it's probably higher than it is on my first tee on golf. But that was the fun in it. It was overcoming the challenge, and it was doing that again and again. And then after 4 or 5 times, you don't go, oh, I wonder if I can. It's like, no, I'm going to. It's just a case of how fast and when. And I want to instill that hunger in my clients to take on challenges within their lives, because there's one algorithm in life that is a constant. And that is that you're always going to be supported and challenged, pain and pleasure. You're going to have benefits and drawbacks and everything that's occurring. And our maximum resilience comes at the point where we can synthesize those two and appreciate both, because then instead of being on the way, it's in the way. And then instead of saying, well, I only can be resistant towards a positive, but I'm scared that this negative outcome is going to happen. No, both of those are going to occur. Instead, I show my clients how to embrace both, how the perceived pain is going to give them strength and help them grow and evolve and get to where they want faster. And how the perceived pleasure can keep them constant and cocky and arrogant and not growing. And somebody else within that field has got the hunger and they're outgrowing them. And now, instead of saying it's on the way, they say, universe, support or challenge me. Whatever you give me, it's going to help me. You can select how I'm going to grow and evolve. So that really is, and it's what you said. I wanted these things so I can master my life. I am the original test guinea pig for that. The minute I saw that they worked for me, now I trusted that I could work with clients and do that. Because in 11 years, I've spent over $300 to $350,000 in personal development and growth and courses, because I wanted to find out in comparison, or comparative study, what works and what doesn't. It's the same in the personal training world. A lot of my friends that are personal trainers are in the health and fitness industry. You could do CrossFit, you could do bodybuilding, you might just go in and do, body sculpturing. There's so many different things that you can do. There are only a couple, obviously, but there's so many different things that you can do and specialize in. And you've got to select, do I want to be a specialist in one? Do I want to take little aspects of each of these? But whatever it is that you're doing, you've got to have some comparative studies so that you can understand what's working and what's not. Sometimes people only want to specialize in one person, their methodology, and never move outside of that. And you have to be lucky to strike that one person that's phenomenal and knows what they're talking about. Otherwise, you may be limiting your growth and your success.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really well stated. I feel like I have all these questions for you still. I'm gonna move on for a second. Perceptions affecting growth was another buzzword that you said. Like, it really is about our perceptions, and it's our perceptions that affect our growth. Go into that for a minute.
Yeah, love that one. So it's not what happens to you, it's your perception of what happens to you. So I'm going to explain where perceptions originate from and how we create those within us, and then what the impact of that is. So let's say you and I are in a room and something was to occur, and let's say we have a friend as well. All three of us are going to see and perceive what's occurring differently. We can even have three different extremes of emotions. We can have an extreme positive, an extreme negative, and then a balance of both positive and negative equally. So let's say I wanted to find out what was happening, and I hand you a form and I say, write all the positives on the left and the negatives on the right. If you handed that form back to me and it had 10 positives, 2 negatives, I'd have a 1-to-5 ratio that you're seeing more towards the positive. So if I asked you about that, your linguistics, which is an analysis of your language, your physiology, the way that your body's actually moving, and the way in which you communicate that, the energy and the tone that comes through that, will all be directly proportionate to that. So you may say, oh, that was great. That was hilarious. Now, if the friend of ours has, let's say, 8 negatives and 1 positive, that's 8 times more than the other. So he's got a 1-to-8 ratio, but it's more in the negative. Anything beyond 5 and above is actually really extreme, by the way. So let's imagine it's actually 15-to-1. And that person may have a post-traumatic stress disorder, meaning post that event, now they're perceiving stress for that. If I ask them, they may say, I don't want to talk about it. And you'll notice there's a fidgetiness, my moving, it's erratic, it's the behavior is very different. So we've got 2 extremes here. You're calm, you're relaxed, you could even laugh at that. And this other person is completely opposite. Now, if I handed that back and there was 4 negatives to 4 positives, I'm seeing that at a 1-to-1 ratio, which is a balance of the two. Now, we take in information through our senses, and our body is one of the most amazing recording devices and units in the world, because we record everything that is happening consciously and unconsciously around us, and then we bring those back up depending on where we have triggers or anchors or things associated with them. But we take that in, and that gets taken visually, it's one of our senses, into our central nervous system. That's like the head office, the brain. That takes that ratio of perception with no guess whatsoever. It just takes that ratio that's created and sends it all the way through the body, through neurology, electrical signals through the body, through the autonomic nervous system, all the way down to the cellular level. Everything you think, you feel. It's an automatic reaction. But the autonomic nervous system is a very important aspect, because that's what stimulates the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, the fight or flight or the rest of relaxation. And that ratio that you just send is either stimulating the fight or flight or the rest and relax. Now, I'm going to take that 15-to-1. That's extreme, by the way. And if I go 15-to-1, I'm overstimulating the fight or flight 15 times more, and that amps you up. Now, every emotion that you have, for those of you that are over the age of 18 in Australia, and I think it's 21 to drink in America, but I have a feeling there's a few 18-year-olds that break that.
No, everybody follows the rules here.
According to some of the frat parties I've seen, it looks like they break that, but if you go to the bar and you order a beer, it's got a certain taste. If you order a sangria, it's got a certain taste. If you order certain wines, they've got a certain taste. Same with our emotions. They all feel different, because just like alcohol, they're a different chemical and compound mixture. At the same time, you can also go to the bar and order 1 shot of tequila, or you can order 50 shots of tequila. Well, you can imagine 15-to-1, that's asking for 15 times that shot. And you can have a mixture of emotions you're experiencing as well. So Now what we see is that we've thrown off the autonomic nervous system because its greatest state of wellness is actually a 1-to-1 ratio where we're stimulating both the rest and relaxation, as well as the sympathetic and parasympathetic, and the fight or flight equally. But now we've thrown that off. And when we throw that off, that creates dis-ease, the body not at ease, and disorder, the body not in order. And the body has to do something because its primary directive and the number one thing it wants to do is protect you and increase longevity. So it's going to do two things, and people don't like this. Number one, it's going to occupy time and space in your mind. That's also known as psychology. Psychology means the study of the mind. Now it's like a big screen projector that's playing something that you don't want to see, and it's on super loud and you can't find the remote to switch it off. When that extreme, anything from 5-to-1 and higher, now you start to have it play louder and more in your mind. And in your body, you also notice in your physiology, that's your emotions, you start to notice, I can't get this thing out of me. And no matter what I do, I keep feeling it. So you're thinking and feeling it. The more extreme those ratios, the more you do it. And by the way, it's on both sides. If you've ever been really infatuated with somebody, you couldn't get them out of your mind, and you notice you were acting differently. That's your mind will try and communicate and say, that's not what it is. You're exaggerating the positive and minimizing the negative. Mm-hmm. When you're doing the same thing in the negative, that's usually when you feel more of a desire to react to that, because you'll really feel that because the different chemical hormone compound that's getting released through you, that will do the same as well. Now, the body is doing that to occupy time and space in the mind and the body to let you know the exact thing that you need to work on, because it's creating destruction and disease within the body. The minute you bring those two into balance, that's what I've been specializing in 11 years with my clients, then the mind and the body lets go of it. Brain noise dissipates and dissolves, and you go back to clarity. Now, the reason this is important is because we accumulate this throughout our lifetime, and that's known as emotional baggage. And then we have anchors and triggers. Just like when a ship docks and it throws an anchor down, all of a sudden, wherever it's thrown that anchor, the ship and that point are now connected. We have that unconsciously. So in my case, it was my father said something in a certain tone, and then we'd physically punch on. So in the future, if I was talking to a boss and they had the same tone until I worked on that, I just reacted them. Then later on, I was like, I don't think this was the right place or context. And I don't think they meant it in that way. But it was too late because that had triggered that response off. And that's when my emotions are running me instead of me running my emotions. And if you can accumulate enough of those, it's like walking in a war zone, because you're tiptoeing around life, because there are so many different things. There's an ex-girlfriend, there's parents breaking up, there's mum, there's association with dad, there's low self-worth. You have so many of these different aspects that now start running your life instead of you running it. And before you know it, you're paying the cost in all 7 areas of life. So that's why I start off by teaching my clients perceptions. And especially if I look at some of the highest performing athletes and actors in the world, once again, we've got 7 areas of mastery, and psychology has to be one of the ones. And I've found that it's just that one that gets you over the edge. If you see some of the actors that are no longer here with us because they've committed suicide, a lot of money, finances, a lot of talent, vocation, and career. Mentally, there wasn't enough there where they were actually able to take on the challenges. So you can't go too extreme in those areas, but not work on your mentality, because now you've got enough money to buy anything that doesn't serve you to the greatest degree, and surround yourself and avoidance strategies and addictions and things, which is a quick high to overcome the low. They're just balancing mechanisms within the mind. That's what all addiction is. When a person's experiencing an extreme low, they look for a counteracting and a complementary opposite high that balances that out and brings them back to a point of neutral. And if they're consistently feeling low, then that's what continues to occur. So that's why I teach my clients how to manage and balance their perceptions, because the minute that they do and they clear the brain noise, and imagine the mind. So I use a Mac, some of you may use a PC, but if you go to the left corner, click on the Apple, and then I think it's like you have a look at what's on the computer or whatever it is, it'll give you a bar. That bar will give you 60% is video, 30% is photos, and then it'll show you what's left. I imagine my clients, and I teach them to see their minds as the same thing. And 40% is the next they never got over. 20% is the low self-worth, and they may only be operating on 10%. And as I look at that, I say, well, how are you expected to do the most inspiring and fulfilling things with your life if you're only operating on 10%? You're only 10% present. The rest of the time you're dealing with putting out fires and creating new ones to add to that. But the minute they attack that biggest one, and then that shrinks down, now they got 30% present from 10%. That's 3 times that. Now they deal on the next item. Now they're 50%. Now they're half efficient. Before they know it, I start hearing my clients say to me, Emmanuel, I had massive challenges today. I didn't even realize somebody else had to tell me I had them, because I addressed them immediately. And then I just got back onto what was inspiring me. This is this is crazy. I'm literally eating up the challenges that are happening in the present and in the future very easily. And the things that are happening in the past, people are having to have to remind me that used to trigger me off because I actually worked on it. And now I'm seeing inspiration in that. So it's about turning things on the way, not in the way. And I've worked on cases that are the extremes in terms of what I've worked on, in terms of abuse and everything else, and or just helping people achieve goals or increase their business potential, financial potential, etc. It doesn't matter what it is. They're all just as inspiring, but they must start off with psychology, because the minute that this thing is in check, you can do a lot of things with your life and give yourself permission to do it as well.
I agree. And I also feel like it's an underutilized or underlooked at aspect. If we just come back into fitness and nutrition for a minute, everybody dives in and wants to start the diet or wants to dive in hardcore with marathon training or weight loss and whatever that looks like. And if we don't incorporate brain work with it, at the end of the day, there's no maintenance. That's going to happen. So I love that you're really honing in on that, because I feel like, call it business, health, all of it. We've got to start. We've got to start, or at least incorporate it with everything else that we're shifting and changing.
It's not even just the start. The whole way through, you're having conversations within your mind. And I think it's a mixture of that and realistic goals as well. My mentor taught me, by the inch it's the cinch. I play very small games on a regular basis, and I'm just trying to win very small things that add up to a lot. So when I played basketball, it was dribbling up and down with my right and left hand. I would dribble up 3 meters, and I just started off by just dribbling just to get a feel. But then the next day I would have to increase that speed. If I did that in 20 seconds, I now wanted 18 seconds. So it was only a little bit. You could do, anybody could shave off 2 seconds doing that 10 times back and forth. But by the end of the week, I got that down to 15 or something. When I walked home from basketball and passed the ball through my legs as I walked, and I would do that. First time I did it until I got tired. Then I would do it all the way, and it was about a 15-minute walk from the basketball court to my house without stopping at all. I didn't think anything of it, but I started off and I just added a little bit extra to it. So I think there's two things. Well, number one is most certainly working on the mentality, but secondly, setting bite-sized chunks that are so small and achievable every single day that when you walk in, you get ready for that. When I go and train, I look at what I did the day before. I've got a gym set up just on my right in the garage, and I look at what I did, and let's say my aim was to do, I've got 5 sets that were 15 each, and I achieved that. The next day, if it was 15 at 15, it's 17.5 now. Then I'm not going to get 15 out of that, but I want to get whatever the next baseline is, so the next week I can beat that. So if I got 10 in my first week, just give me 11, Emmanuel. Just give me 11 on that. You give me 11, I guarantee you 2 weeks from now, I'll move you up to the next one. And they're the games that people need to play. Sometimes we set really big goals, and they're so big and we don't chunk them down enough that we do nothing because we just get in a state of overwhelm thinking of all the things that we need to do. And you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't drive your car, maybe smoke a cigar or call your tax agent, try and eat a lasagna while also homeschooling your kids. You couldn't do all of that at the same time. And that's what you're trying to do with your mind. So the key is to work on that psychology. And the other aspect that we haven't even touched on, work on your self-worth. I mean, that's a huge one. How much do you feel that you're worth and worthy of? Because you can set a big goal, but if you don't think you're worthy, you're going to self-sabotage consistently and then look for ways to sabotage it so you can justify the reality that you've created and the perception that you're not even worthy of it, and then justify it and say, oh, I knew I couldn't do it. I didn't even know why I set that goal. And then bipolar in your emotions, which is monopolar thinking, extreme lows, extreme highs. Instead of realizing you are, and set smaller goals, achieve them, slowly build up your self-confidence and self-worth. And then later on, when people say, well, I've got a client that lost 30 kilos. And when people say, how did you do that? She said, I don't know. I just followed what my trainer said. I had fun when I went in there. And every single day I had a diet, and I just followed those meals and made sure that I ate them. And every workout, I worked out as hard as I could. I never thought about next week. The scale did what the scale did. I just enjoyed what it was that I was there to do. And because she's done that, she's going to lose an extra, I think it's 15, and get down to a goal weight within the next few months.
Yeah, wow. I'm loving that you're using these terms, bite-sized chunks and little by, because it is what I talk about all the time. It's the direction, not perfection part. We'll get there, but I love my community hearing this out of you, who one might think you're hardcore the way that you start, but at the end of the day, we all still get to that same result by chunking away at it and climbing the mountain.
Can I
Nobody
quickly
sees all that hard work that you did. They just see you here right now. And so you still chunked away at it.
Can I quickly say, you're saying for me is progress over perfection. We actually have exactly the same thing. I say, look, let's aim for perfection, but what we're actually looking to achieve is progress every day. We only aim for perfection because it's such a high standard. If we shoot for the stars, we'll hit the moon. But I'm not expecting to do that. It's just the standard that allows us to go for excellence. I'm looking for progress every day. And that's exactly what you're saying. So I'm 100% on board with you for that.
Yes. Yeah. It's just fun. I love when it feels like personalities can be a little different. And at the end of the day, we're all saying the same thing and understanding that if people could settle into the little by little and take those chunks. And like you said, I'll use a scale mentality with that for that client who's losing significant weight and just continuing to go through the motions. I've been known to be a scale smashing dietitian because I've seen the scale sabotage the need of the little by little because they don't believe that it's working and they don't give it long enough to see those results that can be happening because they're not seeing it on the scale, which is so frustrating. But I digress.
That is an interesting thing for what you guys do as well. Like I'm macro counting at the moment. So I basically have my macros trying to hit the certain range within the week. I drop about 0.7 per week on the way down to the goal that I'm looking for. But I've tried many different diets, and at times to learn your body type, you've got to try a few different ones. Because I've got friends that do really well with keto. I didn't find that keto worked that well for me. But macro counting, having some flexibility has meant that at 37, I can eat 80 to 90% clean. I like to have organic. We've changed our whole water system so that it flushes every one of the toxins that the government puts in there right out and gives us pure water all the way through, even into our showers. So we're doing as many things as we can to give the body the best chance to heal itself and increase the immune system and everything else. But that's what works for my body. So it's an interesting challenge for anybody in your position because at times you've got to, and when I had a bodybuilding coach, he used to give me a diet for 6 weeks and then he would adjust that if need be after 3 or 4, but he had to give the body some time to figure out how it was communicating with that specific diet. And then when we were getting down to 6% body fat, which obviously isn't healthy, bodybuilding has its pros and cons, but he would tweak the most minute of little things, even up to photo shoot day as well, and tell me exactly what to take. And it was so intriguing to see that what he gave me and what he was giving somebody else at the same time was very different because our bodies would be so different.
Right. Such an individualized journey when we go down that path. What am I not asking you that you would like to shout out to the world?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't think there really is much. I mean, in this interview, what most people should be able to see, or this conversation, is that I'm just a human being that likes to make life fun like anybody else. The area that I happen to most have fun in is mastery in all 7 areas of life, especially teaching my clients how to overcome their most major challenge and equip them with that. But on the most simple level, I'm literally a guy that loves to do what I love. And it's because I've had to fight for that for so much of my life. And I've had to prove it. And I'm so grateful my dad just didn't believe I was just different to him. And he didn't believe that a lot of the things that I said that I wanted to do with my life were things that would make money. Today, he doesn't ask that anymore. I think the first day I came home with a Mercedes SLK hardtop convertible, he asked my mom and said, "Did he just buy that?" And then after that, he just said, "Okay, must be doing okay for himself." Yeah. But he just loved me and he wanted to make sure that I could create a sustainable career. But whoever you are out there, you're here to do what you love and love what you do and share that with humanity. And when you're doing that, 5 hours will feel like 5 minutes. Time shrinks instead of expanding. When you do things that you don't like, you procrastinate, hesitate, frustrate, and 5 minutes feels like 5 hours. You're here to awaken your genius. I'm a genius when it comes to human behavior. I'm an idiot when it comes to cake decorating. I've got no interest in it. The best interest I have in cake decorating is eating it. I'm a specialized in that. But other than that, I'm just here to do what I love and love what I do. And that's known as a subject called human values. So if I could leave one great thing in here, it's not really kind of a question, but it's something that I'd love to see your students do or people that are listening to the podcast. Go to www.drdmartini.com. click on the values section on that, complete that values determination. It'll ask you 13 questions based on where you're most organized, disciplined, reliable, and focused. Think about and talk about, set goals towards. Be honest and authentic with your answers. And if you're honest and authentic with that, you're going to find out what you're really here to do. Then give yourself a mission to go out and do that to the greatest degree possible. If I do this for 12 hours a day, it's easy. It's probably 9 a.m. I'll be at 8:45 in the morning. I sound exactly the same at 7:45 at night before I finish work. I'm a kid in a candy store. I'm just talking about things that I love. So that would be one of my greatest levels of wisdom. I'm here to help you evolve and grow and master your mindset, but get clear on the direction in which you want to formulate the rest of your life and your highest purpose and mission. And then we can discuss how you can do that in all 7. So you have fulfillment, meaning to feel full in all 7 areas. There's 7 glasses that are full and inspired on a daily basis that keeps you present yet inspired for the future.
Oh, this is so great, Emmanuel. One more time, let our listeners know how and where to contact you.
So you can go to www.emmanuelanthony.com.au. I think you may have notes in the show notes as well.
I will.
I would recommend that you touch base with myself or one of my consultants for a complimentary 20-minute consultation call. I like to think that everything starts off with a virtual coffee. I'm having what is a decaf? It's actually a chai latte that I'm having today. I don't know. I call these virtual coffees because with COVID, that's literally what we're doing now. Everyone's sitting and having virtual coffees together
Exactly.
globally. But those conversations are simple. In 20 minutes, we discuss where you are, what you want to achieve. I let you know what has been getting in your way, how to specifically overcome those blockages, and then I guarantee the results. And we speak about the time frame required to achieve that. Some people it's 6 weeks, some people it's 6 months. It really depends on how big your goals are. But at the end of that, I get to have a look and say, hey, we'd be a great fit or we won't. I'm very honest about that. You get to say we'd be a great fit or we won't, and we can leave our virtual coffee and have clarity as to what the next steps are, and regardless of whether we're working together or not. But I'm inspired to work with as many human beings to get them to do what they love and love what they do, because I think that's what the world needs. So many people inspired out there doing what they love to the greatest degree and sharing that with other humans and giving them permission to go out and do the same thing.
I 100% agree, and keep changing lives one day at a time. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.